hour. And so we will continue that conversation, but I want to make sure that we acknowledge our guests and our participants and attendees who are here with us this morning. Thank you all for attending. We would like to welcome you to the Fort Worth HR Emerging Professional Committee's fourth and final installment of our career webinar series. And today we will be covering successful networking strategies. I want to be sure to thank you all for spending time with us this morning. You could be anywhere in the world on a Thursday afternoon at 11 o'clock in the morning or 12, wherever you are. But you're here with us, so I want to thank you for attending. My name is Kenya Wilson, and I am the Director of Emerging Professionals for Fort Worth HR. And I, along with our committee, we have Jim Tam and Isaac Stolar here. We would like to thank you, and we're excited to bring to you our speaker for today. Before I introduce our speaker, I want to make sure to go over a few things. If you have any questions during the session, you can share those questions in the chat, and we will try to see if we can call on you to interact with the speaker to speak. If that doesn't work out, we will make sure that we funnel those questions to the speaker during the session. We will also have time at the end of the session to take your questions. And then finally, be sure to stay tuned after the speaker for information about upcoming events, such as different sessions, opportunities for networking, and different events from Fort Worth HR. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker for today, and I'm here to tell you that you're absolutely in for a treat. Ashley Owens, who is a networking concierge, is an expert in helping individuals create the ideal networking situations and helping you get out of the wrong one even. She works as a strategic partner during networking events and conferences. She trains, coaches, and speaks on becoming an authority at generating revenue by networking with intention. She is also a host and executive producer of 2 digital talk shows on RVN TV, and this is IT TV, speaking and interviewing on the topic of tactical networking. This is just the tip of the iceberg regarding her journey and accomplishments. And you can find more about Ashley at www.ashley.assist.com. I am certain that you will walk away with a wealth of knowledge after the hour as Ashley shares her energy and experience with you. Warm welcome to Ashley Owens, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jim and Kenya and Isaac. Thank you so much for having me. I got a chance to learn more about all 3 of you, or all 2 of you. Isaac, you're new. We'll hang out. We'll have a cup of coffee. But I got a chance to learn about the 2 of you the last time we hung out, and Jim and I met specifically through a networking show that we were on called the Who You Know Show. Jim and I kind of hung out. We had a chance to chat, and now I get a chance to collaborate with him and his team as much as possible, because that's how you network. If I give my time, he gives me his expertise and resources and the opportunities, and it becomes so much fun because then we all become friends and we're all doing something which is mutually beneficial, helping you guys out, making sure that you're getting the right kind of resources and the best kind of tips and tricks that can really actually benefit you in your networking journey. Now, before I begin, networking sucks. It does. Sometimes it's not great. Sometimes people aren't awesome. But when you create a networking experience for yourself, because networking isn't a sales activity, it's a marketing one, you allow yourself to go out there and be the best version of you, and that you're also presenting to someone else. So when you're thinking about networking, please remove yourself from thinking about it being stereotypical and a transaction, because that's no longer a thing that we do. The world is in chaos in so many different areas, and being able to connect with another human being is more important now more than ever. So as we begin and talk about successful strategies when networking, let's really think about that networking is not a one-size-fits-all thing. Okay, so the things that you're going to learn today are going to be very tactical and tangible, because the way that you interact with another human being is solely dependent on your personality, your emotional intelligence, your mindset, and how you would like to interact with another human. My job today is to give you some good places where you can start and then build upon that. So it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. If something resonates, cherry pick, take what you want. All of these strategies work. Awesome. So just so you guys know, I would love to hear from you because there's 16 participants in the chat today. So please raise your hand if you have any questions. I need attention, so please drop your questions in there and we'll go from there. So let me share my screen. I literally work in technology, and why is this the most difficult thing I've done today? Just kidding. Let's do from beginning. All right, so everyone can see my screen. Can I get a nod from my panelists? Perfect. Isaac is on top of it. I don't even need Kenny and Ken anymore. He's on top of it. All right, so we're talking about successful networking strategies. The real title of this course is called How to Not Suck at Networking, but we're gonna be professional today. But let's talk about when it comes down to just getting to know a little bit more about me, just because when you get to network, you want to learn about who the person you're talking to and to understand like why they tick the way that they tick. Here's the caveat. I've had 17 cups of coffee. I am from New Jersey. If you need me to slow down, I apologize, but you're going to have to just roll with it as we go through the next conversations here. So I'm originally from North Jersey. I'm a fast talker. You understand that. We have the best bagels. I am going to ask the team or ask the group here today, if you know of a good bagel place in Texas, please drop it in the chat because I haven't found a good one and my Northeast little brain is starting to explode. Please drop in the chat a good bagel place. I need some bagels. Einstein's, thank you, Isaac. I appreciate that. Someone send me the link to where I got to go. My little heart's hurting. All right, next is I'm traveling to a new city every single month. So my job in the next few years is to go to a new city and to actually network and build a network and build this little army of people that I can advocate for when they're not in the room. The next is I have no children, but I have an adorable nephew and a really dumb dog. He's a new child that I have, and he's kind of the coolest, except he's one of those fur babies that will run into a dog park and try to make friends with everybody, and not everybody wants to be his friend, so my little heart hurts. Background, I was previously a celebrity personal assistant, which just means I have a lot of therapy bills. That was in New York City. I've competed in CrossFit competitions, which just means I can pick stuff up and put stuff down. Haven't done it since 2015. I can barely lift an iPod right now, but I was able to deadlift 225 pounds, which just means I didn't die during the CrossFit competitions. I came in 31st place. Again, didn't die. Good life choices for me here. I was karaoke champ 2016. Just so you know, that was for my bachelorette party. I have since been divorced, so you know how that went. And then I've been in 12 movies as an extra, which just means that I had some cool experiences in my 20s. And the only cool thing that I was able to do after being in 12 movies is when you're on set for like 8 to 10 to 16 hours, you learn how to sleep up against hard surfaces. So the cool trick is on planes, trains, and automobiles, I'm able to literally sleep anywhere. That's the only cool thing I'm able to do. Thank you to Dane for dropping in the bagel stuff. Remind me to give you the name of my firstborn. I can't even tell you how much I love that. Thank you. And I once ate a Carolina Reaper. Does anybody know what a Carolina Reaper is? Please put it in the chat. If you say yes, Miss Kenya, wow, yeah, wow, Megan, yep. Miss Kenya, would you mind telling the class what a Carolina Reaper is?
It's a devil pepper. Somebody said, Isaac said it's a devil and a pepper. Absolutely, it's an evil pepper.
It's an evil pepper. Now, let me tell you, it's a bad life choice. I'll tell you that much. So tequila may have been involved, and somebody might have dared me to eat a Carolina Reaper, and it was a bad life choice. We all make bad life choices sometimes, and sometimes you talk about it for 6 years in a presentation, and then everybody laughs, and you become more human. So don't worry about your life choices. At the end of the day, it could be a good story. All right, so now that we've kind of loosened everybody up, let's really talk about stress and networking. We all know it's a little stressful the last few weeks or the last 7 years of being in the United States at the moment. But on a scale of 1 to 10, for you guys, if you don't mind just throwing it into the chat, how stressful is it for networking? And would you mind putting the reason? We'll give you about 30 seconds to. Okay, so 10 being the worst, 1 being the best. I lied. 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. Like 10 being the most stressful. Wow, I need more coffee. Okay. 10 being the most stressful, 1 not being stressful. 8. 7, I'm scared of doing things that are totally not realistic. Okay, good. 2 not stressful, you enjoy it. Depends on the day, but got it. Cool. Megan, believe me, I've got moods. Some days I don't even like people. Perfect. Thank you, Tina. I'm a natural with meeting people. Luckily, Jim 4, because some people aren't comfortable engaging in conversation. Fantastic. Thank you guys for your participation. Okay, this gives me an idea. 10, not good with starting conversations. Okay, Lisa, I've got a whole slide for you. We're going to talk about that. Kenya 5, I'm an introvert, but once I'm in it. I noticed that right away. Miss Kenya, you are a phenomenal one-to-one person, truly. It's really lovely to watch. Some people are just unapproachable. And Manuel, very much so. Some people are very unapproachable. Jennifer, issue is I talk a lot about myself, forget to ask others about themselves. Okay, this is a great thing. Tina, I'm with Jim. I would like to learn how to work with some that are. Okay, beautiful. We're gonna cover all of these things, and I'm gonna give you the right questions to ask and how to set yourself up for success here. This is great, thank you all. Okay, so here's the agenda, just to kind of go through pretty quickly. We're gonna talk about the reality of networking, the steps to get started, how to plan your work and work your plan, tools and resources, knowing yourself and knowing your audience. All of these things are gonna be covered today. So drop your questions in there as we go. And if you guys disagree, talk to me. I want to hear why. So here's the reality when it comes to networking. Before you even start thinking about building a robust network, we have to understand something. We are in control of who we let into our little sphere. Okay, we're in control of what army that we build. Only people, now, if the people that are coming into your life do not fit these top 3 criteria, they do not belong in your network. This is the bare minimum. It's like dating. These are the red flags. This is the bare minimum at the bottom. All right. We are better than this. Only people who genuinely care are going to talk to you and not at you, like an Italian mother during Christmas time asking when you're going to have kids. Only people who genuinely care are going to want to help you anyway. These are people that are going to have no tit for tat kind of conversation with you. Like, hey, if I do this, you do this. It's more of a conversation like, hey, of course I help you. If I can send you this resource to save you 6 months worth of research, I'd be happy to. It takes you 2 seconds. These are the kinds of people you want to keep in your sphere. Only people who genuinely care are going to ask you for realistic favors. They're not going to call you up and say, hey, I haven't talked to you in a year. Actually, I can give you a perfect example. I had a call with somebody yesterday. This gentleman, and I use that term loosely, only calls when he needs something. And every year he calls and I always see it pop on my calendar and I'm like, all right, let's see what this guy's got. And when I tell you within 30 seconds, he asked for speaking engagement opportunities and sponsorship opportunities, I am no longer being polite to people like that because they know better. But I am being professional and saying I don't have those resources at the moment, but I'd be happy to provide you with them later on. But you set your boundaries, right? So the people who are asking you for realistic favors are the ones who have earned it. They have earned it. So if these 3 categories right here, or these 3 comments right here do not fit the people that you're connecting with, they do not belong in your network. This is the bare minimum, okay? Now, the next is, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. What is the maximum number of people we can maintain relationships and have social interactions with in our lifetime? Throw their numbers in the chat. You could guess. I mean, truthfully, I like 7 people. And 1 person in my family. So 150. Jim, stop cheating. Jim's seen this presentation before. You're not allowed to participate anymore. Jim's cheating. You don't get the gold star, but still, it's 150. Let me tell you where this came from. This is coming from British anthropologist Robin Dunbar. Robin Dunbar says, according to this theory, the tightest circle has just 5 people. Emmanuel, you're very close. Yes, a handful of people. Those are called loved ones. That is followed by a successive layer of 15 good friends, 50 friends, 150 meaningful contacts, 500 acquaintances, and then 1,500 people that you can recognize. So people will migrate in and out of these layers, but the idea is that the space has to be carved out for them to come in. If you exceed 150 people, the network is unlikely to last long or cohere well. I can give you guys that source. That was an article from bbc.com, but that is the benefit of that. So 150 people are really the maximum number of people that you can maintain and have social interactions with, which means you do not have to meet with everyone. You do not have to let every single person in your sphere, if they do not hit these top 3 things at the bare minimum, you do not have to allow them in your circle. So take the pressure off. Networking is not about abundance, it's about quality. I'd rather have 25 people that will go to bat for me any day of the week than 150 people I kind of recognize. So now we're talking about just being able to know your audience, right? So this is the story of Paul Revere and William Dowes. Everybody knows who Paul Revere is typically? Yeah. Anybody know who William Dawes is, or Dowes? Sort of, not really. Miss Kenya knows. Yeah, she knows. The story is that Paul Revere rode from Boston, 1775. Both of these men did the exact same thing. One rode north, one rode south, and only Paul Revere sounded the alarm for the Revolutionary War. What happened is, and the difference between the two of them is that Paul Revere was something called an information broker. An information broker is a person who occupies a key role by connecting unrelated groups of people. So because he targeted well-connected people during his ride, his news then spread wildly and quickly. William Dowes was not an information broker, so he didn't know what doors to knock down when he entered that small town. So here's the moral of the story. You take that concept into consideration with your businesses, with your skill sets, with who you're surrounding yourself with, because if that information is not delivered to the right people, it will fall into obscurity, just like William Dowes. So when we're talking about networking, we're actually, because a lot of everybody's pretty much working from home right now, and if you are going out, you're going to networking events, you're going to learning and development organizations, and you're being around associations that really hit home for you, right? People are kind of being more selective about the events that they go to. When you're virtually networking, it's not just like reaching out to somebody and saying hello. When you're virtually networking, all of these activities are considered networking activities. Building engagement on your LinkedIn profile, staying in front of your current network with thoughtful content. You don't have to be a subject matter expert. Everyone calls themselves an SME. Unless you've done a certain amount of hours on that one thing since the age of 7, you're not going to be a subject matter expert in certain areas, right? You're going to have really, really good indication of the things that you're good at, and then you continue to learn every single day. Try to become an SME at a specific topic. But there's always more room to learn. My point in saying is, are you putting education out about the skill sets on the skill sets that you have? If you are a master at Excel, create a Loom video and talk about different topics and tricks and things and best practices around Excel. If you are a project manager, what some of the case studies that you have about how you fixed a problem? Are you building new professional friendships? Are you reaching out to past clients and associates and checking in? Now, checking in can be, hey, I just wanted to see how you're doing, see what you're up to, and hopefully I can provide an introduction or two. Learning and developing a new skill from a local subject matter expert. You guys are literally doing that right now. That is part of the process. You are learning and educating yourself on a topic that you can grow into, and nurturing your networking by nurturing your network by staying engaged with their content. The way that people are reaching out and connecting with other people can be done online. It can also be done through the phone. It can also be done through Zoom. It could also be done at the grocery store, the DMV. It could be at all these places. The touch points is the most important, because you're actively staying in front of them. People are on their phones all of the time. When they're going to be seeing what you're doing, you want to create this personal brand of education, because you're going to be seen as that SME in your field, or somebody they can trust with that information. So now that we've got a couple different areas of how you can network online, here is who you should be networking with. It's very simple. There's 3 categories. Do not deviate too far from this. This is just an example of really where to start. Strategic partners. These are defined as people who are in complementary businesses. So if you're looking for a position, if you're shifting, if you're transitioning, look at the positions that you want to get into and then the subcategories of those positions. So for example, a real estate agent and a divorce lawyer are fantastic strategic partners, because if someone's getting divorced, they're either downsizing or upgrading, right? So the journey of that client, of that problem that needs to be solved, at what points do other professionals come in that journey of that client or that employee, right? So if you're looking at identifying the good organizations to be a part of, look at, especially for women, look at women's organizations for people who are professionals. For men, look at men's organizations. For both, look at associations that are in similar industries, because you're going to find your group of people that will advocate for you when you're not in the room, because it's a mutually beneficial relationship. Those are strategic partners. Subject matter experts have a very niche market of people. So just before we started the conversation today, Kenya and Jim and I were talking about opportunities in different locations and different educational opportunities. I have, in my journey of speaking at conferences and doing things like that, I've been able to work with some phenomenal speakers who just happen to be professors at different schools. So because I have a close relationship with them, of course I'm going to make an introduction to Kenya, because there might be opportunities where what I teach doesn't fit what they're looking for. So I'm going to give her people that I know do really, really well. That's not a competition thing. That is I'm going to support my network, because our mutual goal is to make sure that everyone gets what they need. And also it builds networking equity. So now when my girlfriend Sheldon or my girlfriend Keisha or my guy friend Dave, when they all come in, they feel that they're going to give the best version of themselves because I've made that introduction. These are SMEs in your field, so you use them. And then your current network. So your current network is important. A lot of people, what they forget about networking is that they are unable to build out a bigger network because they haven't even looked at their current network that they already have. So they're stuck. They use quantity over quality. All right, next is knowing your audience. Does anybody have any questions so far? Oh, hi, Tina. For me in financial, yep. Beautiful, beautiful. I like this example, makes lots of sense for best networking opportunities. Thank you very much, Miss Tina. Yep, if you guys have if you disagree, please drop it in the chat. Feel free to raise your hand. Thank you very much. Next is knowing your audience. So here's a couple things. This is for in-person networking. So I wanted to leave this open because I know we're still going back in person. So when you're thinking about going back to an event, especially with the things that are coming up, I know Jim's speaking at a couple of events too. You guys should definitely go to those. You really want to go above and beyond. What I mean by that is that get there. Here's some like tangible tips. Get there early. Get there a little early. Talk to the coordinator and then ask them who they typically have at these events. Maybe you can help them set up. Maybe you could volunteer to register people in for these events. When you volunteer to register people in, you're seeing everybody's name, everybody's title, and then you get a chance to see who they really are because you're checking them in. What I used to do back in Philadelphia when I was starting out and building my business, I always volunteered to register people in at any event because the way they treated me at the table was exactly who they were in person. And I was able to now talk to them, chat with them for a bit, and then go and talk to them after I checked everybody in. It allowed me to cut through the BS of how people typically act during events. And it was great because instead of 15 people I wanted to talk to, maybe it was 4. And those 4 conversations were phenomenal. Always go with their food or drinks just because people congregate there. It's a high foot traffic area. It's always going to allow you to get warmed up to the place and have a good conversation, and also something in your hands. As you can see, I'm very Italian and I've got a coffee mug and I do all these things. I like having something in my hand just because it feels like a prop. It's not a safety net, it just feels comfortable to me. So if you're in the process of trying to figure out how to navigate yourself in a room, you're welcome to have something in your hand. It could be a drink, it could be anything. Always talk to the wallflower. I'll tell you why. Because wallflowers are typically introverts and they're typically owners of a business. They're typically in decision-making positions and they're definitely better conversationalists, 100%. They are there because either they have to be, or they're there because they are running something on the back end, or they're there because they know that they need to be there to open themselves up. They're the best conversationalists to have. Do not just go directly to the extroverts, the ones that like to peacock it in the room because they're not, half the time they're not paying attention to you. But go to the person that is hanging out by themselves, that is chatting, and have those conversations, because let me tell you, I've had the best ones with people that are just not congregating with like the noise and the loudness. Forget your 30-second pitch. I would like to remind you that nobody cares what you do. Nobody gives a dang about what you do. What they care about is if you're establishing a connection. You're building something called the know, the like, and the trust factor. People need to know you, they need to like you, and they need to trust you. And it goes the opposite way. You need to know them, like them, and trust them. And how you define that is totally up to you. There's no establishing a connection. You really don't want to waste someone's time. You're there to make a friend, however you define that. And the give, think about how you can help them before you even begin to talk about what you do. And to listen. People buy, and I'm saying this objectively, people buy emotionally. So, and remember how you made them feel. I have sent more people to strategic partners of mine because I had good, natural human connections with them. I couldn't tell you what they did. Didn't matter. I knew whatever they did and whatever their title was going to be a great example of their personality. So I didn't ever have to worry about them not treating my network correctly because of who they are as a person. I'd rather do that all day and match people up based off of personality than anything else. Next is communicating effectively. Okay, so this is pretty important. I want you guys to pay attention to this. So when you're communicating effectively, you want to make your name memorable. So this is talking about online and in person. Making your name memorable. Give yourself permission to engage in a way that is a little bit vulnerable. There's a lot going on right now. You do not have to talk about politics. You don't have to talk about your family. You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. But at the same time, if you're all professional, you're not going to leave a good impression because we're human. There's a lot going on. We're human. And sometimes you need to have that human-to-human connection to feel something. Next is end the conversation with the future in mind. This is the biggest thing that my clients do not do when I typically train them on. If you have your phone and the conversation's going great, and you know you're going to spend 45 minutes with this person, but you know you continually need to work the room or go to another meeting, take out your phone and put a meeting on the calendar right then and there. There's two reasons why this is important. The first reason, if they balk at it, they're full of it. They're full of it. If they say, oh, no, I'll go back to my system, we'll set something up. You have your phone. You all have calendars on your phone. If they say, no, thank you, we'll do it in the next couple hours, they weren't serious about the conversation they were having with you. It's a great indicator about not wasting your time. The second is that it keeps it moving. So that way, if you're talking to 15 people and you get 7 people on your calendar, that is a win. That's a win. You don't have to wait 24 hours to send over a meeting invite. Just do it. Get it on the calendar. Make it easy. The best networker I've ever met, his name is Mark Sandler. He's not part of Sandler training or anything like that. His name is Mark Sandler. He was a car dealer for a longest time. He looks like it. He acts like it, but is the nicest, most compassionate, most detail-oriented concierge. Everything concierge about what I do comes from him. His attention to detail and his familiarity with the human condition. He's a wonderful human. He's got a beautiful family. He will go to an event for 1 hour, get meetings booked. He doesn't bring business cards, doesn't need them. Does not bring business cards, puts meetings on the calendar, and he does it quickly, not because of, he does it efficiently, not quickly, efficiently. That's how he does it, because he knows what to ask. And those questions I'm going to give to you. So this is just ways to make things more efficient for you, but also build a connection with another human being. Plan structured next step conversations. We understand what that means. Create an agenda in your head, or at least say, this is what I would love to talk to you about. Recognize storytelling opportunities. Again, nobody cares about what you do, but if they learn how you fixed a problem, it's going to resonate with them more when somebody else has this problem come up. Oh, you know what? I met somebody who actually fixes this problem. That is going to be a way better identifier about how you can stand out. Building a diverse network. We all network with people that look like us. I guarantee you would do that subconsciously, or maybe consciously. I challenge you to go to different associations that are different color than you, different culture, different religions, everything. It's going to be uncomfortable because that's out of your comfort zone, but that doesn't make it wrong. It just makes it different. I challenge you to find 2 organizations after this call today that you can go and you can attend that is completely different than what you'll see in a mirror. Do that today. That is your homework to do that today. Track the value of networking activities. Always keep track of it somehow in some kind of CRM. I've got a bunch of tools we can talk about, but definitely keep track of your networking activities and follow-ups. Okay, next is we're going to talk about, here's some pro tips. Actually, you know what? Let's skip that for just a moment. We're going to go to deep, meaningful business conversation questions. So the DMBCs, these are questions. So let's say you get the meeting you followed all my instructions. You got a bunch of calls on your calendar, and now you're going to be having a conversation with these people. Here are questions to ask that are relevant to networking. This is how you maintain these conversations or these relationships. You can ask every single one of these questions, or you can ask 2, you can ask 3, but these are the questions to ask. My 2 favorites, that way it's not so overwhelming, is hey, when someone picks up the phone to call you, what problem are they having? This gives you the control to ask them and to help this person explain what they do, because 95% of people are going to give you a 30-second pitch because that's what they've been taught. But when I always love asking this question because it comes from it throws them off a little bit, but if they know their stuff, they understand how they fix a problem. That is the baseline of what they do. The next is how do you educate your audience? This one's always fun to ask because not many people know how, not many people educate their audience unless they're in a coaching or unless they're in a big organization that has a marketing team that does that. But if they are trying to educate their audience, that means that they really have their clients in mind. They really have their employees in mind. And it also gives you an opportunity to adjust the way that you speak to that person, because you may have value in a way that can educate them on how to educate their audience. So think about this as like not prying questions, but think of it as an opportunity to learn more about their organization. And then my favorite is, what are you struggling with the most right now? The reason why you ask this question is twofold. One is gets them to be a little bit vulnerable about like where everyone's struggling about something. We're all struggling on something. So if you can identify that issue, you may have somebody in your network that you've built that allows you to make the introduction. So actually, no, I'm struggling with my marketing right now. Oh, you know what? I've got somebody that specializes in social media. Can I give that introduction? And now you're building networking equity. Now you've provided a service to them, meaning like provided an intro or a referral. That is a great way to just continue that circle of building a networking equity, so you'll never actually have to stereotypically network again. I can tell you right now, since 2019, I haven't had to stereotypically network. I've been doing this method of providing, hey, you know what? Tell me what are you looking for right now? Like who you're looking to meet. I got these 3 people. Let me make the intro. It takes me 2 seconds. Easy, right? There have been opportunities where I have introduced about 3 sets of people over the course of like, I think I've got a couple thousand people I've introduced to, and 3 of those people or 3 sets of those people have all started successful businesses together. And the common denominator of that is that they didn't tell me what industry that they wanted. They didn't tell me who they wanted to meet. I matched them based off of personality. I was like, you know what? I don't know why, but I really think the 2 of you should meet. Now, that gut instinct comes from talking to a lot of crappy people and a lot of great, amazing people. So that instinct is something you build and that you nurture and that you fail at and that you succeed at. But when you get to that point, being able to identify it, use it. That is a powerful tool. Powerful tool, because you know at the end of the day, you're connecting people, and that's the business of networking. The next is I'm going to give this whole list to everyone. It actually comes in like a nice little cutout, so you can put it on your screen if you want. It's like a nice little 5x7. You can cut it out, but it's all there. So one of the other slides we're going to go through is this one. So this is pro tips. So you're welcome, Manuel. So this is a couple pro tips when you're building a network. So the first one, this is all tactical. You guys might want to take some notes on this one. The first one is called following hashtags. Has anybody heard of Gary Vaynerchuk? Gary V. Okay, he's a marketing genius. Yeah, Isaac has. He's a thank you very much, Tina. So he has something called, thank you, Sean. He has something called the $80 method. Now, the $80 method started on Instagram. However, absolutely be done on LinkedIn. The $80 method is being able, when we talk about networking activity and like sustaining and you know, putting yourself out there in a way that's intentional, the $80 method is doing this. You follow the top 10 hashtags that are relevant to the industry that you're in or the industry that you want to be in on LinkedIn. And then what you do is you go to those hashtags and you comment thoughtfully on the most engaged posts. When you start doing that, you start to get more people that are connecting with you. And because we talked about those 3 subsets of individuals, you can connect with those people. You can then start conversations with those people and get them on an informational interview. Okay. The next is you do that 80 times a day, because you're putting your 2 cents on these posts. Now, 80 times a day is a lot. However, it works. You do it 20 times a day, you do it 30 times a day, do it in the morning while you're sitting there waking up, just drop some, knowledge on those topics. It's a great way to continue to build out your own personal brand. I forgot to mention one thing. You can build something called the A and the B team, and here's how you do it. The A team are the people that you know, you like, and you trust. The B team are the people that you know and you like. Here's what you do. You go on LinkedIn and you grab the list of all of the industry names that are associated with LinkedIn. So like when you put a business on LinkedIn, like a business page, it asks you like what industry you're a part of. Or when you search through Sales Navigator, it asks you what industry. Grab that list. In fact, I have it for you. Grab that list, throw it into column A. Then what you want to do is you want to go through that list and off the top of your head, just think about, all right, when I think of marketing, who do I think about? When I think of learning and development, who do I think about? When I think of accounting, who's the first person I think about? You drop that in. I don't care if it's 2 people or 100 people, but they have already subconsciously stuck out in your mind of people that you know, you like, and you trust. The B team is the people that you know and you like. So then you would go to LinkedIn and say, all right, let me type in this particular industry name, and the person that comes up and you smile, that's the person you put in there. That's the person you alleviate. Now, there are people that are going to come in and out of that, but that's a great way to start building your network from a good place. You can always put it back on. You can always build it. You can always take people off, take people on, but you don't want to exceed 150 people. You can have, now if you want to be a little bit more advanced, you can put 2 people in each industry. And then when somebody asks you, yeah, I'm looking for accountants, you get 2 people in each industry, and then you match them on personality. That's the advanced way to do it. Number 2 is everyone is an idiot. And the reason why I laugh every time I say this is because I was raised by an Irish Catholic father. Shocking. And what he says when everybody is an idiot is that is that if you take anything away from this, is that you are responsible for the follow-up. You're responsible for the follow-up. If you wait for somebody else to follow up with you, you're going to have a hard time. If you have no expectations of anybody following up with you ever, you're going to be in control of the situation, and all of this nuance of not being responded to has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. You are responsible for the follow-up. Now, let's take that a step further. If you leave the conversation or leave the email with, let me know if you'd like to chat, or how can I help you? What you're really saying is, I didn't take time to think through what you can do for me, nor what I can do for you. I'm going to repeat that because that's a different mindset shift. If you enter the conversation with, let me know if you'd like to chat, or how can I help you? What you're really saying is, I didn't take time to think through what I can do for you, nor what you can do for me. Now, my biggest pet peeve is if you reach out to somebody and they say, after they've talked about themselves for 45 minutes on a phone call, and they say, hey, just go through my LinkedIn profile. If anybody wants to make an introduction, you can do that. That person does not know their network. They don't know them. That is a cheap way of going about it. Now, the only caveat to that is that if you are having difficulty understanding specifically what they do, and say, you know what, I'm having a challenge understanding the best introduction for you. Would you be okay going through my LinkedIn profile? And I'll have a better understanding once you give me those, and once you find those introductions. It's not just, it shouldn't be the first thing that comes out of your mouth. It should be the last resort. Like, hey, letting you know, like, I'm having trouble figuring out the best introductions. Feel free to go through my LinkedIn profile, and I'll check in with you in a week to see who I can make introductions to. But that A and the B team, that list that you have, should be filled with people you can make an intro to. Filled. If you keep good records. So if you see somebody do that, I usually write them off. Unfortunately, unless they are a high profile person who is running businesses and they'd be willing to do that, that's fine. But it depends, it's case by case. If somebody you just met who is talking about them, it's always the people that are talking about themselves for 45 minutes. They're like, just go through my LinkedIn profile. I've got 75,000 followers. Okay. Do you know every one of them? You don't, because now I'm going to waste my time going through 14 pages of people that I could potentially be introduced to, and you don't know any one of them enough to make the intro. Now you're wasting my time. If I just gave you 5 introductions and you tell me to go through your LinkedIn profile off the top of your head, you don't know your network. You don't know. So these are little things that you can do to set the boundaries and the standards for the kinds of people that you want. Tina, Tina, let's have a drink. Let's go have a cocktail. All right, so let's do, okay, we did DMBCs. These are just networking tools that I currently use for networking. So to give you guys an idea too, instead of just being a networking concierge, I also work for an organization called FlowChat. So I'm the director of customer success for that organization. I am not a salesperson. I never claimed to be. That org, and the reason why I even decided to join that team is because 1, the 2 owners are phenomenal humans, but 2, they have a tool called FlowChat, which I don't even have on this presentation. So just know that this is coming from, this is newer. They have a tool that what it does is that it grabs. So let's say, for example, I post something about, I think Isaac, you might have posted something recently. I saw it come up on my phone about this presentation, right? And some people like that post. Let's say you wanted to use that to reach out to them individually and through DMs. It allows you to continue the follow-up process by connecting with them. So what it does is it drags those people into a CRM, and then you're able to message people through DMs, which has a higher open rate. It's used for sales, but it's also used for following up with my network. I'll give you an example. I was made to audit the entire FlowChat system in the very beginning, and I used it just to follow up with my network that I haven't talked to in 6 months. I had 11 calls on my calendar just because I reached out in a half an hour. And it's just because of my lack of system over the last 6 months hasn't failed. It's been updated. It's been upgraded. So just certain things to think about, and using technology to help you is going to be helpful because it keeps people top of mind. And it also helps with your trash brain. I got trash brain all the time. I got 14 different jobs going on. Lots of things happening. But if you can maintain interactions with people that make sense for you in those 150 slots that you have, you're going to be set. These are the tools that I use. The next is something called Crystal Knows. Has anybody heard of Crystal Knows? I think Jim, I talked about this last time. So this is a really creepy, awesome tool. So in all we talked about knowing yourself, anybody has taken the DISC assessment or any kind of emotional intelligence assessment? Oh, Jim, you know, emotional intelligence assessment. It's great if you haven't taken it, or it's great if you have taken the DISC assessment. I love using it because it helps me train my clients when they come to me for coaching. And so what it does is that if it's an overlay on top of your LinkedIn, and if you're looking to engage with somebody who is a different, let's say I'm a DI, let's say Miss Kenya is an IC, right? And so my way of communicating with her is going to be very lots of exclamation points, probably colors, which can be overwhelming for different personalities, right? So what it does is it gives an example of how to talk to that person based off of the AI or the artificial intelligence on the back end of their LinkedIn profile to make good starting conversations. So they're using this. It's called DISC. It's called a Crystal Knows. I can give you guys the link in the follow-up emails for it, but it's great to learn more about individuals and how they make decisions to start these that way. So that's a tool that I like using. And then Calendly. So Calendly, especially if you're starting networking conversations, you're going to get a lot of people on your calendar. Here's the way you can work smarter, not harder. Inside of Calendly, it syncs up to your calendar and allows people to schedule time on your calendar. But within that, there are a couple of questions that you can put on there for people to fill out. The 2 that I like using are, how did we connect? So I know where they came from. And then what do I owe this pleasure talking to you about? Like, what do I owe, you know, what would you like to chat about today? The reason why that first question is super important, because you need to know where your leads or where your connections are coming from, so you know where to spend your time. But for the longest time, I thought that my newsletter was bringing in the bacon. I was making 3 hours on this beautiful newsletter that nobody was reading, or that the open rate was great, but nobody was actually scheduling meetings with me. In 2018, when I grabbed these analytics, 144 calls came directly from person-to-person referral, which means that my activity on site was doing great. LinkedIn was a close second, and events, but like the referral, like somebody specifically saying you need to meet Ashley, came from the activity of making introductions. So that just kept growing and growing and growing, and that was by far the biggest. But using this data allowed me to see what organizations I should have gone back to that weren't producing good strategic partners, and 2, where I was spending most of my time. So now that I know that my newsletter was providing 1 event or one meeting on my calendar, it wouldn't have worked. Like I spent 3 hours on the newsletter for what? I brought it down to 15 minutes. Now I'm working smarter, not harder. And then also when we talked about start doing the $80 method on LinkedIn, what happens is that you want to open the door for a conversation. So people are going to want to connect with you in some way. If they don't fit those 10 industries that are relevant to your field as strategic partners, then they don't belong in your network, because there's nothing mutually beneficial unless you're friends from another organization. This is the template that I've used before I used FlowChat. That gave me a phenomenal response rate. And if people did not respond to this, then I would take them off of my list, because anybody that I had the pleasure and the privilege of connecting with on LinkedIn, I would ask for a 15-minute phone call. I did that all day, every day for 7 months. You just start doing the $80 method and start sending messages like this, because the goal is you're connecting with another individual. In conclusion, knowing yourself, make your name memorable, know who you're networking with, proactively reach out, plan your work and working your plan. And remember, guys, like activity breeds results. If you're not doing anything, you're not going anywhere. It's not going to do anything if you just sit there and just wait for people to give you the opportunity. Sometimes you got to take it. And then remember, networking is a marketing activity and not a sales one. So you're putting yourself out there in a way with intention, and being able to network and being able to put yourself in a position where you can network with other strategic partners is going to grow your network better and have it actually work for you. So you're building an army of champions that will advocate for you when you're not in the room. And that's all I have for today. Any questions?
Feel free to ask questions in the chat, or if you would like, you can raise your hand and I'll turn on your mic.
La, la, la. I'm going to provide both Kenya and Jim with a bunch of resources that I talked about, including a video. You're very welcome, guys. I know, Maria, I'm sorry. I'm going to give you a breakdown of everything so you have it. I know it's a lot of information, but the goal is to give you an idea of some of the things that I don't ever teach on things that I haven't done. So there's a lot that I've tried. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just thinking about a question. You know, there's times where I've kind of pulled up into a parking lot, right? And then getting ready to walk into a happy hour, and then you get the surge of nerves or the surge of nervousness. What are good tips that you've heard or that you've seen that work for you in terms of kind of purging yourself of that energy or turning that energy into something positive?
So great question. If you find yourself going to an event and having a panic attack in the parking lot, don't go. And I'm saying because you can do a couple different things. There are plenty of virtual networking opportunities where by the time you get to the in-person thing, let me give you an example. So private networking groups have been all the rage since the pandemic. So people have removed themselves typically from like the chamber events, and the private organizations or associations will have smaller independent groups that they have the people that they pick to be in those groups. When you're part of those groups, by the time you get to the in-person stuff, it's a happy hour, or it's a barbecue at somebody's house, or it's a nonprofit event that you know everybody there. So why give yourself, again, there's something to be said about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. But if you are having a physical reaction inside of a parking lot because you're going into an organization that you know nothing about, and you're trying to remember all of these things and everything that I taught you today and what the questions to ask, you are setting yourself up as a human for failure, because you're going into an environment that feels negative, when talking with another human being should be a positive experience to gain to know them. So then your networking activity, because of who you are as a person, should be one-on-one. So your networking activity should reflect that. Having a one-on-one conversation is so much more in depth and wonderful, especially online, or especially when you're in control of it. You're no longer going to feel like you have to go to these events unless you want to. Now, if you have a bunch of people that you know that are going to be there, it's always good to be in person. It's always good. It's always great. But don't stress yourself out going to an event if you do not want to. Go to some that you're comfortable with, and it's always good to be a little uncomfortable, but if you're having a visceral reaction in the parking lot, do not do it. There are plenty. Let me give you an example. I am an extrovert. I am an annoying extrovert. I love going to events and chatting with people. After the pandemic, I haven't been to one networking event, not one. I live in Austin, Texas, and I haven't been to one networking event. You know what I spend my time at? Conferences and summits. And I will travel and do the 3-day conferences where I get so many great connections, and that lasts me forever. And I continue to meet with people every single day from, nurturing those relationships. Why? I have a dog and I live in Texas. I don't have a car. Like, it's not that I can't do it. It's just my personality has changed and my efficiency has changed. So as much as I love going out to events, now it's just like, do I really have to go? Unless my girlfriend's going and I can go. So I've been to a conference. I went to a women's conference a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, all right, I can already tell this is going to be a little janky. And I went, and it was fine, but my target market and my strategic partners were not there. I was at a different level at that point. But I went because it was good, but I also recognized that my time is also best spent celebrating somebody on LinkedIn, going and doing a virtual event for them, reaching out to them and having a one-on-one Zoom call. Like, you can trade different things. Go to an event if you want to, but if you're having a physical reaction, that's your body telling you that you need to look at other areas. That would be my suggestion. Yes.
Yeah, you touched upon this, and you mentioned something when we were on the radio show together.
Oh,
Talk about the strategy of working with a wingman.
Oh, yeah.
Event. Yeah, let's talk that.
Sure. So so I still get hired to go to conferences and kind of be like that networking concierge and that wingman, right? So a lot of the times the clients that I had are introverts. So they have me come in, and the best part of having somebody with you, especially if you are uncomfortable, is that you have like a base, right? You have a base to come back to. There are going to be challenges with people no matter what. There's going to be people who are politically driven. There are people that are going to be racially driven. There are people that are going to be, any kind of, and they're going to rub you the wrong way, right? That's just human nature. When you have a wing person with you, it allows you to then have somebody to go back to, not as like a safe zone, but just as a backup. And so when you have somebody with you, you also can utilize their chatty Cathy kind of conversational personality to start the conversation. So my clients I would go to an event with them, and I would give them a game to play. I said, I don't want you to do anything except find out where everybody's going on vacation this summer. That's all I want you to do. Find out, come back to me and let me know what they said. And these conversations would turn into more personal, understanding what they did at the very end, because it led with, not what do you do? And so a lot of the times my introverted, wonderful clients would watch me like start conversations and then say, okay, let me mimic that because it got them out of their comfort zone. Or they would watch me go over to somebody brand new or interject into a 3-person, area, or, walking past somebody and just start, just because that's the nature of how I do it. It was helpful for them to see it. And if they bombed, we can talk about why they bombed, or we can talk about how that happens. So it felt like if they ripped the Band-Aid off, it wasn't so scary. Does that make sense? But Isaac, do not go to an event if you do not want to, man. Like, we're no longer doing things that we don't want to do. There are no rules right now.
Well,
setting those
yeah, I think
boundaries,
it's
buddy.
empowering. It's about choosing and selecting how you spend your time. And that kind of makes me pivot and think about another question. So sometimes I find myself at networking events, especially at Fort Worth HR, and there are folks that are looking for employment or folks that are seeking things out of these networking events. And oftentimes leading with questions like, what do you do, can open yourself up to a response that you're not prepared for.
Yeah.
And to not be rude, what's another way of saying, like, what do you do, without putting yourself in a position where if somebody is unemployed, they're not able to answer that question or respond back?
What brings you here?
Okay.
What brings you here? And that's my favorite one to start with. I never ask them what they do unless, so I always try to turn the conversation back to them first. Like when someone asks me, oh, what do you do? You know what? I can talk about myself all day. I'm really here to get to learn you, to learn more about you. Make a joke at some point. Like I have all that stuff. The goal is that you want to be able to ask them as many questions as possible to understand who they are, what they do, and what makes them awesome. You then as the introvert, you can then control the conversation better, which allows you to feel more confident in how you're going to respond. So if you're going at it where the fear comes in, or at least what my clients have told me, so this is obviously, just take this with a grain of salt, is that the fear comes in of like, I don't know what to say. But if you're asking them questions to understand them better, you as the introvert are going to have a better understanding of how to ask those questions, but also how to craft the conversation, because you guys are better networkers than extroverts, 1,000% better, because you talk with intention. I could talk all day on the stage, all day, every day. My mindset has significantly changed to be more intentional about who I'm speaking with and who I'm connecting with. And that took a lot of practice and a lot of watching myself speak. So want to know what helped me? Interviewing people. So I had 2 TV talk shows. Interview was the best masterclass in learning active listening. So Isaac, going to networking events, start a podcast, dude. Start a podcast, because that will allow you to control the conversation, interview somebody that is interesting to you, share and collaborate, and share them to your network. Doesn't have to be
That's
in
wonderful.
person.
Thank
Yeah, of course,
you.
yeah.
Great.
Before we let you go, I have just one question for you. You talked a lot about building strategic partnerships. So as I was thinking, I'm thinking about those who are just starting out in their careers. What is one thing that they can do to help them identify those key strategic partnerships that they need to make? Because sometimes people, maybe they don't know themselves, or they're like, well, what can I offer? What do I need to look for?
Great question. Great question. Here's where I would start. Look for associations that pique your interest. It could be associations on a humane society with animals. It could be a women's group that specializes in people who are in power positions. It could be, just start at the very baseline of the people that I want to be around. The kinds of people that I'd like to be around, personality wise. There is and it may take, in fact, I have a list for everybody. It may take a few tries of going to different associations and different groups to be like, all right, where are my people? I don't want you to think about going into a group and being like, what do I have to offer? I want you to go into a group and think about, what do they have to offer me? And that could be a resource, that could be an ear for you to talk to, that could be kindness. It could be just the baseline of the people that you want to surround yourself with. And that is the great start, because everything else will follow. Do not worry about going into an organization and trying to prove yourself. That's not how life works anymore. It is a employee market right now. There are plenty of jobs opened. You get to decide what you want. At the same time, you also have to set those boundaries with what you want. You're not entitled. What you're doing is you're going in and you're understanding that the people that you want to surround yourself with should be better than you. And if you're not in those rooms, if you are the smartest person in the room, you're not in the right room. That was a hard lesson for me to learn. I was like, everybody's fine. And then I realized my thinking was so much more, I was growing and felt like I didn't have the value to grow with the people that I was around. And so I became like, I was stagnant for about 6.
Uh-oh. I think she froze.
Well, this might be a good way to end the
Yes.
webinar series point.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that when she sends her follow-up, she will be able to continue that and provide additional information. But I definitely want to thank you all for attending with us today. And I want to extend a welcome to Ashley for such an awesome session, because it was a perfect way to wrap up our series as we talked about, career seeking and job search. So I would like to thank you all for attending and being here with us. If you enjoyed this session and others, the recordings will be made available on our HR Career Series webpage. Also, please be sure to continue interacting with us with Fort Worth HR. If you're not a member, consider joining us for our next luncheon and legal update, which is July 20th. If you're not a member, please, 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 please consider joining. Allow us to help you build some of those strategic partnerships that Ashley discussed with us today. Along with events such as this, you can take advantage of different networking opportunities, professional development, certification preparation, and professional emphasis groups in your area of interest. Also, make sure that you stay tuned on fortworthr.org or fwhr.org for information about our 12th annual Strategic Mindset Conference taking place in September. And with that, we all can sign off. Thank you so much, everyone, again, and enjoy. Ashley, before we wrap up, do you have any parting words? We just want to thank you.
I had so many good words, and then I just, it was great. I was going for like 10 minutes. So sorry, everyone. Wi-Fi went out, but what an absolute pleasure. Everybody watching this today, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about both, everybody that put this together, they are doing the right thing. Follow what they're doing. They're bringing in people that will advocate for you when you're not in the room. They have the resources, they have the tools. I wish I had this at some point. This was not something available to me when I was starting to figure out my next journey. So utilize what they're doing, reach out to these people and for assistance and resources. You guys are all in the right spot. So please continue to follow Jim and Kenya and Isaac on what their programs are, because that is going to give you the next level up. So that's all. But yeah, thank you everybody for so much for having me here today.
And everybody network with Ashley, okay? Look her up, connect with her and leverage her network too. So, okay.
I got people.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
For the rest of your day.